dog days of summer, the hottest time of the year is when flying operations drastically increase. Whether you fly for recreation, corporate, commuter, or air carrier operations, a pilot knows that the moment you begin your walk around and then taxi for takeoff, you subject your body to extreme heat. The human body operates best when its core temperature is at 98.6 degrees. Fluctuations in temperatures during flight are the cause for basic physiological responses in your body known as thermal stress. Over a period of time, it is this thermal stress that becomes a significant factor in terms of pilot fatigue and impaired performance. Since the cockpit environment presents several kinds of physiological and psychological stressors anyway, it's best to learn how such elements can impact pilot functions. Without knowing the scientific term, pioneering aeronauts understood thermal stress as their balloons ascended in the air. Pilots in open cockpit aircraft recognized temperature extremes while trying to compensate for added wind conditions. Thanks to the invention of heated and pressurized cabins, the technology of today's aircraft eliminates the chilling temperatures once associated with flying. In the early days of aviation, as interest in temperatures became more paramount, especially with regard to tropical and desert-like regions, heat stress became a major problem for pilots. Humidity, temperature, and radiant heat contribute to a body's ability to manage heat loss and gain. Closed cockpits produce a greenhouse effect on the ground and during periods of low-level flight. Even with the technical sophistication of air-conditioned aircraft, heat stress continues to be an important concern because the capacities of most onboard cooling systems are deficient on the ground and at low altitudes. Post-accident survival situations can also expose a pilot to hot desert or tropical conditions. Pilots are exposed to varying levels of thermal stress, and their responses to such stress differs among individuals. To better understand the factors that contribute to personal thermal stress, one first must acknowledge the following aspects. What is your personal range of response to heat? What are your options for reducing unacceptable thermal stress? The human body is able to maintain a heat balance by 4 different methods: conduction, convection, evaporation, radiation. Conduction is where heat is transferred by having contact with another object. This can happen when a pilot sits down in an aircraft seat that is already hot. Convection occurs when heat is transferred by liquid or a gas. This can occur when an aircraft engine warms the outside cold air for comfort in the cockpit. Evaporation occurs when liquid changes to a gas. Energy or heat is required to produce this change. Whenever a body perspires on the flight line, eventually the perspiration evaporates to cool the skin. Evaporation occurs during exercise and in a hot cockpit. Radiation is a method where heat is transferred from an object to another object through the air. When you sit in the sun and can feel the transfer of heat from the sun to your skin. So what happens to you when you expose yourself to extreme temperatures of heat? The factors that affect human tolerance regarding temperature stress are very individual in nature. There are many individual aspects that should be taken into consideration. The type of clothing worn should be suited to the weather conditions you are working under. What about the amount of physical workload or activity exerted? Pilot workload can vary from commercial pilot, aerial applicator, military fighter pilot, or that of a glider pilot. The amount of physical activity exerted during flight is a significant factor when considering levels of thermal stress. What are the environmental conditions? When examining the internal and external environment of the cockpit, what are the conditions? Direct solar radiation? Greenhouse effect. In the cockpit, there may be indirect solar radiation where heat is reflected. Be aware that whenever you operate an aircraft in extremely hot environments, the temperature does have an effect on your flying performance. When flying performance deteriorates, it is related to both physiological and psychological factors. There are several predisposing factors that as a pilot you need to be aware of when flying in hot conditions. Advancing age, female gender, history of heat-related illness, poor physical fitness, lack of ability to acclimatize to heat, hydration,